Hello everybody, welcome back to Foldspace Origami Studio. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I certainly did, and it was nice to take a little break from things and worked on some projects around the house and kind of got some things in order for this coming new year. The year of the dragon, yes. So that's kind of what we're here to celebrate today. Now, technically, the Chinese New Year doesn't actually begin until February 10th because it coincides with the lunar calendar. It's the Lunar New Year. But other cultures, including the Japanese, they stick more to the traditional calendar year. So on January 1st, 2024, people were wishing each other a happy year of the dragon. So right now we're kind of in this in-between phase between the beginning of the calendar year and the beginning of the Lunar New Year. But hey, I think it's a great opportunity, regardless, to learn this fantastic dragon model designed by Sok Song, and gives you a jump on preparing dragons for February. So hey, you got almost a whole month. So it works out pretty well. So please say hi in the chat. I've been streaming to both Facebook and YouTube simultaneously for the last few sessions, but I decided just to consolidate and just stick with the YouTube stream. So I hope you all on Facebook found your way over here. And before we actually get into the origami, I just want to talk a little bit about the Chinese zodiac. Okay, so we are just now leaving the year of the rabbit. And by the way, I do have a nice little rabbit video on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and check that out, if you need to fold any rabbits for any reason. But anyhow, of course, now we are entering into the year of the dragon. So this is the 5th of the 12-year cycle. And I thought this graphic over here was pretty interesting. It's funny because I don't think they're all really true origami models, but they are meant to look like origami models. However, though, the rat for the year of the rat, that looks like an Eric Joisel rat. Am I right? I mean, for those who know, you know, right? But anyway, I think a lot of those images aren't really quite true origami. But the dragon one and the snake look pretty accurate as far as folded models go. But anyway, yes, it is. We are entering into the year of the dragon, and I wanted to read a little bit about this year. Now, this comes from a book on the Chinese zodiac. I don't know the title of this book. I apologize. But let me just read a little bit about the year of the dragon. Okay. Because it symbolizes fertility, the dragon is the sign of creation and innovation on a wide and expansive scale. In the dragon year, therefore, the time is ripe for bold strokes, wild, extravagant schemes, and dramatic, flamboyant gestures. All right. Those involved in the arts, especially the theater, can look forward to a period of increased attention to cultural activities. And the time favors exchange visits and festivals. The dragon, being associated with astronomy, promises new discoveries in cosmology, too, which will incite great interest. Now, that all sounds really fun and exciting. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited for this year. And funny enough, what I just read does sort of coincide with what I'm sort of mapping out, planning, hoping for 2024. So who knows? This could be my year. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the symbolism of the dragon, too. The dragon is the only mythological animal among the 12 zodiac animals, which is interesting. And this suggests some highly compelling reason for its inclusion. I mean, after all, it was a creature only known in imagination, or, as one cynic pointed out, had never formed an item of the Chinese diet. Okay. So, there's a little bit about the year of the dragon. How many of you out there in the chat were born in a year of the dragon? I'd love to hear you. And, oh, cool, we got some activity. Mara. Oh, it's Nina. Hi, Nina. Hi, good to see you, Nina. Kelly, great. Yes, Kelly says, thanks for the lift in spirits on this dreary January day. Yes, it is certainly dreary here in northern Ohio in Oberlin. Although, it's funny, it's been cloudy and gloomy and really windy here today. And now the sun is starting to come out and shine right in my face, as I thought it was going to be gloomy, so I didn't try to block it out or anything. No, but anyhow, I digress. But yes, continuing on, Beth, hello from freezing Arkansas, so it's cold down there too. Olga, hello. Lisa and Kathy, hey Kathy, and hello Brent. All right, cool. All right, good to see you all. Now, I think we are ready to jump into the actual origami, and I have a little bit of show and tell here. And so I had a lot of fun here folding dragons in preparation for this class. And the reason I have all these dragons here is because I was folding from a pack of fadeless duet paper, which I'm going to show you here in a second. And for a lot of these sheets, I couldn't decide if I wanted like for example, a pink dragon with yellow wings or a yellow dragon with pink wings, and I thought, well, why not do both? And so that actually worked out really well because I will show you. So this paper is kind of giant, but this is fadeless duet paper, and this is a great option if you need some large duo colored paper because it's a little bit difficult to find duo paper in larger sizes, right? Now, it's not my favorite paper to fold with. It is a little bit thick, a little bit heavy, although that does mean it works really well for things like boxes. But the dimensions are 12 by 18, and you get a nice little selection of color combinations. It says easy to fold and will not crack. Yeah, I can kind of get on board with that. Now, granted, this paper that I'm folding with was probably several years old because I got it from a friend of mine who had it stashed in his closet for quite some time. Thank you very much, Charles, and hello. I'm sure you're out there watching right now. But what's great about this, because it's 12 by 18, what I was able to do, so I take 18 divided by 2, so I can get two 9-inch squares. So I have to cut one strip off, and then I have an 18-inch by 9-inch rectangle, and I cut that in half. So what was cool is for each sheet that I cut down, it gave me 2 sheets. So I was able to do the pairing. Now I don't have every single one. There's still 2 sheets left that I haven't folded yet here. But I think it's just a wonderful model to showcase duo colored paper, or in this case with the fadeless, it's called duet paper. And I'm pretty sure they still make it. I'm pretty sure you can still find it out there. But yeah, Kelly knows what I'm talking about. It is hard to find duo in larger sizes. And yeah, so, all right, let me clear the space. All right, okay, cool. And also, I want to show you this example here. I just posted this morning. Now, this was folded from tissue foil. Now, not the tissue foil that's sold at the origami shop, but this is actual aluminum foil that has tissue paper glued to each side of it. Now, I folded this many years ago, and the wings used to be nice bright pink, but that did fade. So this is not fadeless paper, that's for sure. But let me tell you, the foil is amazing for the shaping, because look, I was able to get this nice little curl in the tail and in the wings. And there's an extra step here where we can make the legs a little more pointy. I'll compare this to the one that we're, the kind of the standard design. You can see the difference there. And so this works really well too, okay? So next, we're going to talk a little bit about my method for folding this dragon. Now, I want to show you real quick. Now, I'm going to show you the diagram. And by the way, this model, of course, is designed by Sok Song, and Sok Song was the creator, or the one who spearheaded CREASED magazine. which ran for a few years. And I should have looked up the dates. I don't have them right off the top of my head. But yeah, CREASED magazine, right? So we're not going to fold it from these diagrams. We're going to actually do it slightly different. But I just wanted to show you that in Sok's version that he diagrammed, he had you begin with a preliminary base or a square base. And then if you look here to step number 8, you end up doing a sink, or 8 and 9, you end up doing a sink at the top. And then you also end up, if you look down, step 10, which is down here, it starts down at the bottom, you inside reverse fold the corner flaps to get sort of what I think of as the base of the model, right? And so, you know, when I started folding this model, I fell in love with it, and I folded a lot of them, and then eventually came to realize that there's a different way that you can approach this, which I think works a lot better. It saves you from having to reverse certain creases. It kind of saves you from having to do the sink, and if we just put all the right creases in the paper at once, we don't have to do all that extra stuff, and we can just kind of collapse the paper down. So again, here's a square base just to show you. Normally we would end up sinking the tip at the top, and we would do inside reverse folds here and here, but we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it my own special way. Okay. So here we go. I'm using a sheet of 9.4 inch paper. Technically, it's 24 centimeter paper. And by the way, my friend Nina emailed me the other day. I'm sorry, Nina, I haven't had a chance to email you back yet. But she is asking, what brand of kami do I use? Because it does seem to be pretty nice on camera. Well, it's because it is. This kami is made by Toyo. Toyo makes some of the best kami out there, at least that I've encountered. And it's always really, I don't know, it's just really nice. It comes in a lot of colors, but what I appreciate the most about this paper is that it's usually cut perfectly square or pretty close. When you buy a pack of origami paper and you fold it in half your first time, especially on the diagonal, and you see that the paper's not square, boy, what a letdown. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that so much with this Toyo paper. And so here we are. We're about to start. Before we do, though, there's one thing I forgot to tell you. So this dragon is called Wen's dragon because it's named after one of Sok's friends, Wen Chao, who used to always, and maybe they still do this, but they would pick the song Puff the Magic Dragon for their karaoke songs when they would go out and do karaoke. So that's why Sok Song designed this model and decided to name the model after Wen Chao. So that's the story behind that. And Toyo, I mean, you can get Toyo paper from the Paper Tree in San Francisco. You can also buy it on Amazon. We used to sell it at the Origami Shop, but we don't run. I don't run that store anymore. But I think you could probably still get it from Europe, from the European shop too. Okay, let's get into the folding, and then I'll get back to the chat here in a bit. So here we are. We're going to begin with the colored side facing up. And so in this case, I'll show you. So the colored side is going to be the body of the dragon, and the back side is going to be the color of the wings. So we're going to begin with the colored side up, and we're going to subdivide the paper in half along 4 different axes. So we'll just begin in no particular order. I'm going to start with a book fold, folding up and away from myself, lining up my corners, sliding down the middle, and then out to one side and out to the other. Sharpen that crease. And then I'm going to do a second book fold. First I'm going to open my book and then take the bottom edge of the open book and match it up to the top edge of the open book. And I'm going to open the paper up again, and now I'm going to fold in half along both diagonals. So I'll basically just kind of repeat the same thing that I just did. Bottom corner, up to the top corner, line it up, slide down, out to one side and out to the other, and then the other. Diagonal. There you go. Now, I actually did a live stream of this same model way back in 2020, not long after things first shut down. In fact, I went back and I dug up the stream on my Facebook page, on the Foldspace Facebook page, and it was April 11th, 2020. When I taught it then, for that first time on the stream, I accidentally had you fold all of those first creases from the wing color side up, which is not the side that you want them on. So I kind of messed up that first time around. So now I get to redeem myself. All right, so here we are. So we've made a bunch of valley creases on the dominant colored side. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is that, you know, in Sok's version, you begin with the preliminary base, which those book creases, when you make a preliminary base, those book creases are mountain folds, okay? But notice here, we made them as valley folds, and that's because after you do all that work with the sync and the inside reverse folds in the later steps of the model, you just end up reversing these into valleys anyway. So why not just make them valleys to begin with, all right? So now I'm going to show you how to make the other sort of folds that you need to collapse the model down into what I think of as the base of this model, okay? So, all right, I'm going to flip the paper over now to the wing-colored side, and I'm now going to install a series of pinch marks that subdivide each of these segments in half. And we don't need to fold all the way across, we're just going to make a little pinch mark. So I'll begin by bringing the bottom corner up to come right up to that center point. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to hold it and then run my finger down, making sure not to let the paper slide. And there's my pinch mark. And I will repeat on the other 3 quadrants of the square in no particular order. This is another difference from Sok's version. In Sok's diagram, he has you, basically, you're making a crease that goes all the way across here, which you just use as a reference for the sync, but we're doing ours a little differently here. Okay, so I now have these 4 pinch marks, which are my landmarks now for the next set of steps. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that bottom corner and I'm going to fold it to meet the farthest pinch mark that I've made that corresponds with that corner. And we're going to fold all the way across this time. So I bring that corner up. And what can be helpful, and certainly what was helpful for me when I was folding the set of all the cool duo color paper dragons in the Fadeless, it was dark. And I have these like great fluorescent overhead lights, but it made it really hard to see the pinch mark. But what you can do is if you just kind of lift the paper up a little bit, that can help you see that pinch mark a little bit better. Okay. So we're folding all the way across, right? And then unfold, and then rotate, and we can do these in any order because one does not really affect the other. So I bring it up to that pinch mark. Now I can see it pretty well here during the daytime, but nighttime is a different story. And maybe you're sitting someplace that does not have great light. Lisa comments that she likes my phrase in no particular order because it's not common in origami that you don't have a particular order. But I would say there are a lot of models out there where, and in fact, this is kind of one of them. I mean, you get to a point in the model where it's like, well, you need to work on this part of the model and you need to work on this part of the model, and they don't really affect each other, and so you can kind of do them in whatever order you want. But more often than not, no, the sequence is very important in origami. One thing does lead to the next. Okay, so now this is really cool, because now with all of these creases in place, the paper already wants to start collapsing down. Okay, and you see these spots here, these sort of triangles. These are the inside reverse folds that you would normally do on the side corners of the preliminary base. So look at that. The creases are already in place, and what's really neat, and this is what I realized when I was making these on my own years ago, when I realized that you have this like continuous crease where this part of the inside reverse fold also connects with this part of what eventually becomes the sink. We are basically going to sink the middle here, but it's going to go pretty easily, and it's going to be really satisfying. So here's what I do. If you kind of gather these four sides, kind of like you're closing, or not closing, but it's like you're forming a box, okay? And in my 2020 stream, I kept referring to it as a Chinese food takeout box, which maybe is kind of fitting here, since we are gearing up for the Year of the Dragon. But we end up with this neat little box form, right? And I've been actually making a lot of models recently that use this same configuration. And I will add that there's a model that my friend Brian Webb and I designed that we named the Boxy Flower, because we start with this thing that looks kind of like a box. And it almost does kind of look like maybe like a tulip, like a boxy tulip. Anyway, I digress. Let's flip the paper over and look at the bottom side. And what's going to happen is that the valley creases that are running through the diagonals of this square, you'll see here, they're going to want to kind of start to collapse, or to just kind of close in on itself. And it doesn't matter which one you pick, but watch this. So you pick one, and then you squeeze this together. And then if you kind of grab these layers here and just kind of push them all the way together, the paper just kind of knows what to do. You just kind of push the paper together so that you end up with these four flaps. And one thing that I've been kind of pondering a lot since I've been making so many of these is that this model reminds me a lot of the traditional origami crane for a few different reasons. And this is one of them, is that you end up, or rather not end up, but you start out with a base that has four identical flaps that radiate from a central point, okay? And so what we want to do here is take two of those flaps on one side and compress them, and then take the other two on the other side. And then I always like to give the model a nice little sort of press, a little squish here. Yeah. All right. And what's also kind of neat, now you don't need to do this, but if you wanted to like explore this base a little bit, check this out. If you pull this flap down, oh, and you know what? My sink did not go totally cleanly, which doesn't really matter because you don't really see this anyway. But now that I'm opening it up, there we go. I just kind of took that point and pushed it down a little bit further. But yeah, so here, if you kind of peel this down, look at there. Again, kind of reminds me of a crane. And here, if I did it on the other side, and much like the traditional crane, you have two side flaps that make the wings. And then you have a flap in the front and a flap in the back, which form the neck and then the tail or the legs of the crane. Cranes don't have long pointy tails, so I usually think of the back end, even though I still kind of call it the tail. and many people might think of it as a tail. I think it's supposed to be the legs of the crane, honestly. Anyway, who knows? But here we are. So we've flattened the base. There's our sunk point. And I'll just, real quickly, for a comparison side by side, just show you, just to kind of prove it, that it's like we've inside reverse folded these side corners and sunk the tip down into the model. Oh, sorry. I threw the wrong one aside. Okay. Cool. All right, cool. Oh, all right. I think it's time to zoom in. We got the zoomies here. All right, now let's continue. We're now going to do one of my favorite origami maneuvers, the rabbit ear. And we're going to make rabbit ears on the front side of this and the back side of this to create the wings of the model. And so what that means is we're going to take one of these side edges, and it doesn't matter which one you start with because we're going to unfold and do it with the other side. And we're going to align this side edge with this bottom edge. So that's going to come down like this. Now when I do this, when I actually put these folds in, I actually kind of like to orient the paper like this. Okay, I feel like I have a little bit more control over the paper this way. But I'm going to take this edge of this flap, and there's sort of a natural hinge that forms. So you don't want to, I mean, ideally, like this edge is lining up with this edge, but don't worry so much about this alignment. Just let the paper do what it wants to do. And in a lot of these that I made, there might be one of these that I would fold down where this edge might not quite meet that edge, but I didn't want to force it because the paper didn't really want to go farther than that. And that's okay. It really doesn't matter. Okay? So I folded this side down here to make this crease. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the opposite edge, but this time I will fold it up. And again, just kind of let the paper do its thing. Part of the reason is that there's a crease happening along this edge, and if you pull it too far, it gets kind of messy here from this corner. So just let the paper do its thing. Okay? And so here we go. So I'm going to rotate it again so we're back here to this sort of house shape. So we've done this side, and now we can form the rabbit ear by taking these sides and kind of pulling them both together. We're basically engaging these two valley crease segments on the diagonals down here. And as we do that, we have a flap that sticks up that we can now pinch. And what we want to do is kind of make sure those layers are pinched together and they don't slide around too much. But you can set it down in one direction, flatten it out, and I recommend that you then exercise this crease by then kind of like turning the page of a book, send it to the other direction. Just letting the paper do what it wants to do, but that gives you a nice hinge because ultimately this wing is going to be sticking out to the side like this. Okay, but for now we can just let it sit flat on one side or the other, it doesn't matter. And now we'll take the model, we'll flip it like a pancake, and we're going to do the same thing here. And once again, I'm going to turn the house on its side because I think it's just easier for me anyway. I'll start with the bottom edge this time. We'll take that bottom edge, kind of lift it up towards the vertical edge, let it kind of find its way. Here's a good example. It doesn't quite meet. Doesn't matter. You'll never know when you look at the final product. So we go down. Excuse me, I just went up. Now we'll go down, down. Okay. We unfold, and we get those two valley creases that form an X. And if you get kind of in underneath that layer here, bring that down. That gives you your rabbit ear. I love rabbit ears because they really often look like rabbit ears on actual rabbits. And yeah, pinch those layers, kind of set it down one side. and then set it down towards the other side. Exercise the creases. Okay. And so here we are. It's starting to look a little bit more like a dragon. So again, we've got flaps for the neck. We've got for the neck and the tail. And we've got some wings. Okay? All right, so I'm going to send both of the wings to one side. It doesn't matter which one you send them to, because we're going to do a series of steps on both flaps on both the front and the back. So we're going to repeat this 4 times. 4 times. All right? And much like the traditional crane, you take your flaps for the neck and the tail, and you narrow them by making angle bisectors, right? Now here is one difference from the last time I streamed this back in 2020. Something that I kind of figured out that works a lot better, I found. So I'm gonna flip the house on its side once again. I like your comment, Res9695. Considering the shape, it might be more accurate to say flip it like a house on HD TV. Good one. I love it. Okay, I'm going to focus on the bottom flap here. We're going to make some angle bisectors. However, we are going to leave a gap for our first one. And we used gaps back when we did the Sonobe unit workshop some time ago. I guess that was last month. And so what that means, I'm going to take this edge of this flap, and I'm going to bring it up towards this center edge, but I'm not going to bring it all the way. And in this case, I'm going to leave a gap of about 1 millimeter, maybe even a little more. So here we go. I'm going to bring that up. The key is that we just try to keep it parallel. You can kind of see there's a healthy gap there. Not a ton. I wouldn't go much more than 1 millimeter or so. But there we go. So the reason we leave a gap here is that we are just about to do another angle bisector with this same flap on the same end. Well, the sun's coming out. I don't have blinds for this window, so anyway. And when you make your second angle bisector, what tends to happen is this flap wants to push out a little bit. And by leaving yourself a gap, even if the paper does push out a little bit, it's not going to stick out the edge once you make that fold. So and when I do this, I'm going to make sure I pinch these layers firmly so that it slides as little as possible. And I'm just going to kind of focus on the alignment, really just kind of in this middle section here. Here we go. And as always, I like to kind of like run my finger along to the point gently as I ease that into place. And then I kind of set the rest of the flap down here for the second angle bisector. Okay. Now, let's do the, okay, let's flip it on the back. Let's flip it like a house on HD TV, and, or like a pancake, and flip it to the other side. So I'm going to do the angle bisectors on the same flap here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing where I leave a little bit of a gap and just kind of eyeball it. Try to leave about the same distance as you did before. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we do that angle bisector, and then we do another. And again, I'm pinching, I'm really holding those layers together firmly, and I'm just kind of finding the alignment in the middle, and then it kind of wants to find its way the rest of the way naturally. All right, so before we do the other two, I just want to point out, herein lies the genius of this model, or at least one of the many aspects of this dragon that I really appreciate. You might have read in the description that I feel like this model gives you a clever solution for creating a body with a neck and a tail and wings and 4 legs. And by doing this second angle bisector, part of the flap hangs down just a little bit, just enough at the bottom to suggest legs or feet. Or in fact, I mean, this whole flap here, I think, does a good job at suggesting the legs of the dragon. And that's really what origami is all about. I mean, you've got the hyper-realistic origami, which is incredible, but it's really difficult and it takes a lot of skill and time and practice to fold. But for a simple model like this to give you 4 legs and wings and a neck and a tail, that's like unheard of. So very cool stuff. All right, so now I'm going to take those wing flaps and I'm going to get them out of the way by sending them to the other side, and I'm going to repeat that same sequence of steps where I'm going to make angle bisectors. Bringing this right up here. And then we do it one more time. I think what I was about to say that I didn't really quite finish saying is that in origami you have a lot of origami is all about abstraction, okay? And so if you just suggest the different shapes, forms, appendages, whatever, sometimes that does the trick, and our brains kind of do the rest to fill in the gaps, find the patterns. Okay. Last one. Here we go. Haha. So we are cooking here, and oh, Luna asks a very good question that I failed to mention, was that yes, the second angle bisector does in fact go all the way to the edge. You don't need to leave a gap for the second one. It's just that first one that gives you some wiggle room here, and the second one does go all the way to that edge. So Luna, thank you for asking that. Yep, here comes the sun, Mara. Woo! I swear, all morning it was gray, snowing, windy. Ugh, and like literally like 10 minutes before I went live, the sun starts to come out. Normally I'm elated to see the sun. It's like really bright. Okay, so here we go. All right, let's all take a little stretching break while the sun gets hidden by another cloud. There we go. Okay. I'm not normally so happy to see the clouds covering the sun. Okay, let's move on. Now, from here, this is kind of where, back to my earlier point about how you can do the next steps in any order you want, because basically we need to work on the neck and the head, the tail, and the wings. But here's my preference for how I like to work on them. So I like to start out with the tail from this point, okay? And basically the front and back are identical, although one thing I do consider sometimes when picking which one I want to be the tail or the head is if one of my points looks a little bit cleaner, a little more pointy than the other one, I might want to save that for, say for example, the tail, where that's just, you're not doing much to the end of that flap. You want it to just kind of look pristine the way it is, then great. So in this case, I think this one's a little bit more pristine. The other one, I mean, they're pretty much the same at this point. But the other one is eventually going to become the horn, and the horn even has a little bit of, the horn doesn't need to be like a perfect point, in my opinion. So I'll save that for the head. But anyway, these are just things I kind of think about sometimes. Now, there's a few different ways you could do the tail. Now, typically, what I usually do, I just do a crimp by I kind of push my finger right there, so I kind of curl the model out a little bit, and I do a crimp by angling the tail down. But I'm going to give you an easier way of doing this, and in fact, this is actually how Sok diagrammed this step in Creased magazine. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an inside reverse fold that connects with this point here on the back. So I'm going to keep kind of pinching the model here. I'm going to kind of spread this flap open. And the idea here, if you're not familiar with inside reverse folds, and what that means is we're going to reverse this long mountain crease. Excuse me, you can't really see that. The long mountain crease that runs up the center of the tail. So if I spread the model like this, and I start to reverse that mountain into a valley, here we go. So it's going to start kind of coming down. We're going to get some new creases here on these two sides. And you can kind of angle it however you want. Maybe not quite horizontal. I mean, it's really to taste. It's up to you. Right? All right. So there we go. There's the tail. Now it's sticking back. Now what we can do is take the two halves of this flap, and we're going to reverse that long central crease by taking these two halves and just kind of pinching them down. And there's the tail. And you actually do get a much cleaner set of flaps in here. I'll show you. Here's one of my, well, actually that one doesn't count. I don't know. Anyway, dang it. Yeah, so it does work out pretty well there. And from there, the tail is pretty much done. Now, of course, if you were using foil, or really, I mean, you could shape it. It's going to shape better with foil than with paper. Sometimes I've seen people put extra crimps in the tail, but that's totally up to you. Okay, so the wings right now are pointing forward. Before we swing them back to get them out of the way, we're going to work on the wing just a little bit. We're going to do one step on the wing and then go to the head and then come back to the wing. So what we want to do now is bring the bottom edge of the wing up towards this vertical hinge. But you want to make sure that you don't cross the hinge, because you still want this to be able to swing pretty freely. But we take that edge and we bring it up. And it's okay if it's just a little bit shy of that hinge. And then here, we're going to crease along here. And then we take that wing and then we swing it back on the hinge. Now Sok has you do this, he has you put the wing on the front side. I much prefer going to the back side, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. All right, let's flip it on the back. Here's the tail side. The wing is pointing forward. Take the bottom edge of the wing and bring it up to that vertical hinge. Nice sharp crease, and then we can swing it back. And the reason I like to go back is that we get these lines here. I mean, you get that line there, but you get this extra one here. And we're going to use that line when we finish the wings, when we finish the model. All right, so now for the head. All right, I'm going to flip it back over this way so that, because I'm right-handed, it's my dominant hand, I'm going to use that for making the head and the horn. And it's a pretty simple couple of reverse folds. So we have to kind of guess about how far up we want the head to be. And notice that I've already kind of spread the paper out like this. I'm using my thumb here. I'm deciding about where I want the head to be. And it's really, again, to taste. But what's going to end up happening, the head is going to look rather long at first because we need a bunch of this extra paper to form the horn. So don't worry about that. But we're going to do another inside reverse fold, just like we did with the tail, where wherever we're kind of pulling the paper down, we're going to reverse into a valley fold. And you can kind of pick whatever angle, doesn't really matter. Fold to taste. And there we go. Now we've got a really long pointy nose, but we're going to change all that. And now just kind of pick a spot partway down, maybe not quite halfway. Actually, no, you don't. You want to actually pick a point about a third of the way down, because what's going to happen is we're going to kind of flatten this part here, and we're just going to swing it back inside those two layers here. Okay, so we're basically doing another inside reverse fold. And wherever we make that fold will determine both how long the head is and then how much horn is sticking out here. So those last three folds, they're all rat folds, right about there, and you can fold them to taste. And if you want to go back and if you decide that your horn is too long or it's not long enough, you can go back and just adjust accordingly. But I find that there aren't really any wrong answers here, and the more of them you make, you'll find that they all kind of have different personalities anyway. All right, so we've got the head finish, the horn. In some of mine, let me see if I can find an example here. I was starting to get like a little bit of a color change in the horn, which is kind of cool. You could even like twist the horn if you want it to look like that. It's totally up to you. Okay, let's finish the model by finishing the wings. And again, one of the reasons I like to fold this flat back is that we get a line, we get an edge here, and then we already have an edge here where the color changes. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to put radial pleats in the wing. To start out, we're going to pinch 2 mountain folds. So we're folding in the air here, and we're going to pinch 2 mountain folds that follow those 2 lines that I just pointed out. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm going to start with where the color changes, and just pinch it where it naturally wants to bend. You know, it doesn't have to be right on the edge. I mean, it should be pretty close to the color change anyway. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pinch a mountain crease in along this edge. This one's a little different, but I'm just going to try to follow that edge and pinch a mountain fold. Okay. So now I've just pinched 2 mountain folds, and now I'm going to create a bisector with a valley crease in between those 2 mountain folds. And this works out really nicely because here's what we can do. If you just kind of push the paper in a little bit, maybe use thumbnail to kind of push it in a little, but we want those 2 mountain folds to join with one another. And once we find the alignment, we kind of pinch the whole thing and kind of pinch that valley crease in between. Now I'm going to leave it so that I can now, I'm going to kind of turn it over so I'm looking a little bit more at the back side here so I can see this part of the wing. And we're basically going to do the exact same thing. We create another bisector as a valley crease in between this mountain crease and this time this edge. So just kind of grab that back edge of the wing, bring it up to the mountain crease. You'll probably get a little paper creep here, a little color showing. Great, it adds a little accent of color. It's nice. Okay, so you kind of fold that one down, and then you kind of unfold it a little bit, and we get this nice pleated wing. Okay, let's do the other side. Pinch a mountain in along the color change. Pinch a mountain along the edge just above it. And then create the angle bisector in between and make sure it's radiating from the back of the dragon. So I'm going to kind of push that in while I pinch those 2 edges together. And finally, bring this edge up to there. And there you have it. Wind's Dragon. You can sing Puff the Magic Dragon in your head while you're folding this. Now, there's an extra step that you can do, which is pretty nifty. However, I don't usually try it on thicker paper. Even the kami, it's just a little too thick. This fadeless paper was like way too thick to do this step for. But it actually worked really well with the foil and you'll see that this dragon has pointy feet, pointy legs, okay? Now you can do this a couple of different ways. You could do an inside reverse fold, but what I found when I try with the inside reverse fold, I don't know, you just kind of get some extra paper here, but it does work, and it is a nice little variation here. What's interesting too is that you can almost see there's a sort of an embossed edge. You're not going to really be able to see it on camera. I mean, I can see it here certainly, but there's already sort of a natural, there's an edge underneath it where this naturally wants to bend. So you can use that to guide your inside reverse fold. But what I prefer, like if I'm going to do this and I'm using foil, you don't have to inside reverse. You just simply fold the flap inside the model. And when you're folding with foil, you can tuck that inside, fold it inside along that edge, and it's going to stay. You don't need to worry about it coming undone. But I forgot what I was going to say. I just got distracted by Kelly's comment. It makes pointy legs and a cute bum. Yes, it does. It certainly does. But anyway, this is just like a nice little variation that you can make if you want to give it little pointy feet. But there you have it, Wynn's dragon. Now, if you used smaller paper, you probably found that your dragon turned out pretty small. I'll just show you. I meant to do this at the beginning of the class, but I'll just do it now. But just for comparison, you can see how much this model shrinks down from the square that you start with. So there we go. So I mean that's a pretty significant sort of decrease in paper. So even with 9-inch paper, the models still only stand, let's see here, about 3.5 inches tall. Okay, but if you folded this with me, you've already figured that out for yourself at this point. So, all right, there you have it, Wynn's dragon. Thank you so much for folding with me. I also want to give a huge thanks to those of you who have been tuning in regularly, or at least watching the recordings after the fact. I've been getting lots of really great emails and other correspondence, a lot of really positive feedback. And I want to thank, I've had a few people make some contributions in the tip jar over on my Linktree, which, by the way, if you'd like, you can go to linktree.com/foldspace. Although I've heard some people are having a hard time actually accessing this. But if you, I'll put a link down in the description below. You can also access it from my Instagram profiles. But there's a little tip jar there. If you want to throw a few bucks in the tip jar, that'd be great. No obligation though. Don't feel like it's a requirement by any means, obviously. But I want to give a huge thanks to people who bought classes, bought lessons over the holiday season. I'm about to start some of my first lessons this coming week, private lessons here in my studio, which is really cool. And I know I keep talking about this. I just have to mention it. Please save the date for my online origami retreat, which will take place March 15th through the 17th. Coming up, just 2 months. So I'm going to be rolling out some more info for that here very soon, I promise. In the meantime, though, I'm gearing up for my artist residency down at Berea College. I'm not sure when my next live stream is going to be, but I was thinking I might try to do some live streaming from Berea down in Kentucky. I'm going to be making a body of corrugated sculptures. I'm super excited about that. I've always wanted to do an artist residency in an interesting place where I get to just focus on making art for 2 weeks, and they put me up and I get to hang out with the students, I get to use their facilities, and I get to do an artist talk, all sorts of fun stuff. So you're going to be hearing a lot about that online, especially on Instagram, Facebook, and I might do a live stream here on YouTube in conjunction with that. So hey y'all, don't be a stranger. You can get in touch with me any number of ways. You email me at james@foldspacestudio.com, or you can contact me through the Linktree. Also, the Linktree is a great place to go and find links to lots of the old videos or the past live streams that I've done. And I've got a lot of really cool stuff in store for this year. So just looking at the chat here, Brent, Kelly, Lisa, Rez9695, Olga, Bishop. Oh no, Bishop 59Bs was lost, but it's just rewatch the video. You can always rewind and watch it again. And all right, cool. Well, that about does it. Thanks again for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like if you'd like. And I'll see you at the next one. Y'all take care. Happy New Year of the Dragon.